It's great to see we have such a full house here, day 2 of Marketing Connect. I was talking about a few people earlier, and people were asking me about the title. And when you're online and you see like an article on Twitter or Facebook and it says like 33 ways to stay young forever, and then you click it and it's a bunch of horse shit and you're really disappointed. That's called clickbait. So that's a little bit about what this was, and you could be sorely disappointed, but we're going to do our best. And so when we're thinking about the theme today, I think we're really going to talk about doing more with less. Right?
That was my title, and then you changed it to this shit. I don't know how that came about.
Doing more with less. So whenever we talk about unlikely sources, so I work for Innovate BC. We're a government agency, and so I'm a communication strategist and I'm a writer. And Karm, CEO of Daily Hive, and so Daily Hive has been built over the last 10 years at a time when actually media has been having some challenges. And actually last year, Daily Hive was ranked by Canadian Business as the 38th fastest growing business in Canada. And they're a media company, so that's quite the achievement. So whenever we're talking about unlikely sources, we're talking about government and we're talking about media, what are you going to learn from marketing from us? So today I think what's going to happen is hopefully you leave saying, oh, well, no, that was really thoughtful and we learned some stuff. Or you might leave with your preconceived notions about media failing, government incompetent, reinforced. Hopefully it's not the latter. Hopefully
wasting tax dollars.
What's that?
Wasting tax dollars.
No. We don't get enough funding.
I know. We'll get to that.
We'll get to that. So before we get started, something that I've been thinking over the past few days is I actually don't know who is in the audience. And so I'm curious, who here is, I guess they call themselves the marketing person, like they have marketing in their title. Is there anyone here in the room, marketing, comms, PR strategy? Or is it people who you would say, I'm the business owner. I own the business that I'm running. Great, so a bit more people. And then I'm also curious, who here has sort of maybe not started the business? Maybe you have an idea for a business that you're getting ready to start. Is there anyone here who's getting ready to start a business? Oh, actually none. So everyone's marketing or business. That's super interesting. So to get started, what I want to do is actually talk to you, Karm, about building your business. And throughout that, I think we can really tease out different insights. And over the past few days, you've seen a lot of presentations that go pretty deep into digital marketing, CRMs, that are very specific about social media, ROI. And I think what we want to do over the next, I don't know how long we have, 30, 40 minutes.
Something like that.
Take a sort of a broader view on really building a business and being resourceful. So where did Daily Hive come from? Like I said, Daily Hive is the 30th fastest growing business in Canada. And I think you guys have between 17 and 19 million users a month or whatever. But I'll let you sort of get into that. What is your organization, and then where did it come from? How did you start at the very beginning?
So Daily Hive, for a lot of you that aren't familiar with it, it's a digital media publication based out of Vancouver. Started in Vancouver. I founded it. I think it's 11 years. I'm not too sure. I think it's about 10 or 11 years. It's been a while. I started it on a whim. It wasn't something that I planned. There was no business plan. We didn't really actually have a business plan until like last year, to be honest. A lot of that business plan was like right here, and we would just we would just do whatever came up in our heads, and we're like, that works, and we're just gonna go with it. But we started it out of a need and necessity where we thought that traditional media was not talking to people like me. And when I say people like me, I'd say people that are under 30, primarily not white, and not, that aren't in the circles that you would kind of normally tend and, talk about in a positive light. Only time coverage that would come into my neighborhood or, most of the other neighborhoods was whenever there was some sort of crime or something like that, and then you'd get coverage every other time. All the cool people doing some stuff, you'd never really hear about it. So we wanted to flip it and be like, there's so many cool people in our neighborhoods opening up shops, starting businesses, but nobody will ever know about it. So we want to kind of use like the people we knew, kind of put them out there in the forefront.
So over the past few days, we've heard a lot about content and content production, and I feel like with a lot of businesses or people in marketing, you feel like there's a need to make sure everything you put out is perfect and super well designed and super high production value. And so obviously you're in the media business, so you're sort of in a content production business. What was like the first posts, right? Like how did you go from one post to 3 readers to 100 readers?
Yeah.
And what did that look like? Was it at the quality that it is now?
Oh, hell no. I wrote like the posts back then, and I'm a business graduate. Writing's not my strong suit. And so the first posts that we wrote were like maybe 2-3 lines, and it was just me making some references and jokes and talking about the city in like a fun light, and it was just kind of like I was shooting the shit with my friends, and I put it on a blog. That was the first post, and nobody was really reading it, but I had fun doing it. The process was fun. Just coming up with the whole idea of like, oh, we'll write about post about the shitty weather that we're having, but we'll do a different spin than how the weather person would say it, right? So we do stuff like that, and then the only readers were like me, co-founder Manny, and maybe a couple of friends. And we would get addicted to the idea of checking analytics to see if anybody read us or did anybody else stumble upon our stuff. And lo and behold, for the first few months, nobody else was reading it. So they weren't good posts, but we thought they were funny.
I think those first early posts gave you guys some feedback. Here's what people were looking at more. Here's what other people were looking at more. And I think back then you were probably small enough that you weren't afraid to make mistakes. And I think a lot of organizations think like, oh, like we post this thing, it's kind of rough. Like what's everyone going to think? But I think we have a room full of small businesses, and like if Microsoft posts something or Apple posts something and there's a mistake in it, like someone gets fired.
Yeah.
But I think for a lot of us in the room here, that might not be the case. So I think people can be a bit more brave about what they're posting about and the chances they're taking.
Yeah, I think like making mistakes is something that you do in the course of running a business anyways. The mistakes just get magnified, obviously, as the bigger you get. And yeah, sometimes the mistakes are so grave that heads will have to roll. But when we started it, we were making mistakes left, right, and center. And some of those mistakes still come back to haunt us every once in a while. But, you grow thick skin and you kind of roll with it. But you learn from them. And then you kind of see what worked and why people are upset or whatever the mistake was. And then you kind of take that and try to not make that mistake next time. And try to keep pushing the envelope further and seeing what you can do and how you can grow.
Great. And so today we're talking about building businesses. When did you guys see, I guess, traffic really spike? When did you start getting attention, sort of transitioning from this blog that no one read to something that people were really paying attention to?
We started seeing a spike, I think. So we used a little marketing tactic. Not knowing anything about the blog world, I wasn't embedded in it. I knew nobody that wrote blogs. I didn't even know what the fuck a blog was. What we were doing was blogging until someone said, like, oh, you guys are bloggers in Vancouver. That's really cool. I was like, okay, yeah, I guess so. So we started then realizing that there was a community of bloggers, and they had these websites, and they actually had traffic because they've been doing it for years. And at that time, this was like 2008, 2009, the way to kind of get noticed was to leave comments on other people's blogs, posts. And then and that comment would link back to your blog because you're allowed to do that back then. I don't think you can do that now, but... So I would read people's blog posts and try to leave good comments that they weren't just some generic comments. There were comments that were like directed at the article that was written, and try to like start up some sort of discussion about the topic, and then people would comment back, and then they were like, oh, who the hell is this Van City Buzz guy? Like, and so then they would go back and check us out, and then they were like, oh, this is actually not that bad, and then they would leave a comment. So we kind of built like a mini community of bloggers, and we kind of leveraged that to start building an audience. So take their audience to then go and check us out. That was kind of like a tactic that we used to kind of grow. And then once we kind of saw that kind of build up, we started just testing things. Let's talk about events going on in the city. Let's talk about the new restaurant that opened up in the city, because nobody else is talking about it in a quick format where it's just like, here's what you need to know. And we started seeing even more traction. Then people started sharing it on social media, and then I found out about Twitter, and then got on Twitter and started talking to even more people, and then it just kind of amplified from there and started drawing on people. So we used that core audience and that social following, and then when the Olympics came in Vancouver,
Talk about the Olympics a bit.
Yeah, that's what we really used to springboard our growth.
What happened with the Olympics?
We covered the Olympics because we didn't get any media accreditation because we didn't apply because we didn't know that was a thing. That's how much we knew about media, And to this day, most of the traditional media will probably prefer we don't get accreditation for most of these things, anyways. but we didn't get in. But we loved the fact that the Olympics were coming. But we were, too young, not young guys, but we were in our, mid to late 20s, and we were broke. We couldn't afford most of the events anyways. We didn't win the lottery tickets to go to events. So we were like, you know what? There's probably like more people that aren't actually going to be able to enjoy the Olympics in like attending them than people actually attending them. So let's write from the perspective of, hey, you can't go into these parties, you can't go to these events, but there's still a lot of good stuff to do in the city that's either free or super cheap. So we took that angle and ran with it. And for those like 3 to 4 weeks of coverage, we just kind of kept going, and our traffic was, it increased by like 1,000% during that time. And the one article that really killed it for us was, I don't know how many, like 50 free things you can do during the Vancouver 2010 Olympics. And that got shared so many times, and then we kept like taking that 50, and then we broke it down into daily, like, okay, well, there's 14 days, so we'll take the main article, but then we'll write about what you can do on Monday and Tuesday, and these are all free. So that brought a huge surge of traffic, and from that, we saw that people were checking out other stuff. We were linking back to other content that we did. We tried to find clever ways to even sneak in content that had like nothing to actually do with the free event, but we're like, oh, just in case, this is also kind of cool, this restaurant, you might want to check it out, it's on your way to this event. And we just kind of kept linking back, and those strategies don't really work right now because people's habits have changed and they don't click on the links anymore, but back then they did, so we just ran with it.
Did you guys do any contests or anything like that?
Yeah, so we do a lot of contesting even to this day, and my social media team is here, and they know because they have to handle it now, and it's a nightmare for them. But back then, there was this, we did one contest prior to the one that really kind of helped us, but we did a contest to give away like t-shirts for this urban clothing store in Vancouver called Dipped. Some of you may know. And I don't know why the guy came to us, but he came to us and he's like, I want to give away some t-shirts. I was like, all right, I don't know how to do this. But we came up with a mechanism to, like, in order to enter, you have to retweet to enter. And then that kind of went viral on Twitter, where everybody was retweeting to enter these 5 t-shirts that we were giving away. So that caught, some PR people found out, like, oh, we can give away you can do giveaways? That's cool. I was like, yeah, what do you want? I'll give it away. I'll take anything at this point. Fuck, nobody's, this is the early stages. So, but Burke's, their PR reached out and said, we have this pendant or something that was super exclusive for the Olympics, and we want you to give it away. And I was like, oh shit, this is dope. So we used that to really grow our following on Facebook and Twitter. I think you're not allowed to do that anymore for Facebook. They kind of will ban you, but back then they didn't care. So we grew our Facebook page quite a bit, saying like, in order to enter to win this pendant, it's like $300. You have to like us on Facebook and leave a comment saying that you liked us and all this. I don't think any of it was like, if the legal people were to look into it, but like, you guys didn't administer this contest properly. We had no contest rules and regulations even on our website. So if someone from Quebec entered, they might have won.
Totally illegal.
Yeah, right. But like the time has passed and they can't go back and check into it anymore, so we're good. But we ran that contest and we found a winner, and like that took another, from the business angle, the marketing that came from that contest and people seeing that, at the time we were called Van City Buzz, that name was constantly streaming on Twitter, and we were gaining so many followers on Twitter and then on Facebook. It was just like a gold mine for us, that $300 contest, which it didn't, I would have paid knowing what the results were to get that prize to administer that contest because it was so good for us.
So, I mean, you talked about 2 things here. The first one, you were talking about the posts you were doing for the Olympics, so 50 things you can do for free. Perhaps the insight for the group here is about providing value, I guess, right to the community. And Sean and some others talked about that, right? The little sort of the map of brand, providing value to customer, consumer. Hopefully they give something back, right? So that's one thing. And then you talk about the contest too, right? So
it's just giving back to the readers.
Yeah.
What they want. Like, we looked at it, like, okay, people like this content, let's give them more of it. Seems kind of simple enough, but like at the time, you don't really know that's what you're doing, right? You're just like consciously, subconsciously, that's what you're kind of doing.
But again, I think it goes back to what we've heard a lot over the last few days, which is just providing value, right? Yeah. But the interesting thing is that your reader is actually not your customer, because they're not the ones giving you money. Right? No. So let's...
now that's the tricky thing with publishers. They don't directly give us dollars, but but through the ads that we have, even though I know Sean doesn't like those fucking ads, but I like them. Those, readers, the readers, everybody here, including myself, we all give up something. Nothing is for free. You're going on a website, you're giving your data up. Yes, that data now goes into a pool, you're served an ad. That's what you're giving up. And then if you happen to show some interest in that ad, and you might click it, and if you don't do anything with it after, that ad will follow you around for a while. That's how everybody kind of pays us, is right? Not just the banner ads, but it's the data that comes from that. Then the advertisers from their platforms will see that, and they'll start feeding you ads. So technically, they pay. Not with dollars. I'll take dollars if you want to give me dollars too, but I doubt it.
They are giving you something. It's
there's nothing in this world comes for free, man. There's always some sort of exchange of something.
But on that note, who were the first people to pay you money, and did you use any slide tactics to pretend that you had advertisers when maybe you didn't?
Yeah. See, Will knows me, so he's asking all these questions. So I used to work for Blends Coffee. I was a controller for I don't know how many years, a long time. And while I was building the Vancity Buzz, which is now Daily Hive, I still held on to my full-time job because I wasn't making any money for the first 5 years. It was just something that I really loved to do, and it was just a passion project at that time. So, I looked at it and I was like, well, I'm working here at Blends. They could use some eyeballs and, marketing. And so what I did was I took their logo, put it on the website, and said that they're an advertiser of Vancity Buzz. And, they weren't going to get mad. They're getting free advertising on a decent website. So we used that, and then we said, I just put a little link, like, if you're interested, click here for our advertising rates. And I think that piqued a few people's interest, and then eventually our first deal was, and I don't know if this company still exists, but it was called the Bachelor Plan. So it was these two ladies, they would plan your whole bachelor party. And everything that comes with it. I won't get into the details, but it comes with a lot of stuff. And they wanted to advertise, and they were like, "Hey, how much for a little banner ad, for a month on your website?" And I remember seeing that email, and I was like, I went back to my buddy Manny. I called him. I was like, "Hey, man, somebody actually wants to give us fucking money to put an ad up on the site." And he's like, I was like, how much do we charge? And he's like, I don't know. So I was like, and at the time I was like, you know what? How much money do we want? I just want to buy a pair of sneakers. What do you want? So we looked at it, and I think it was $75 for the month, is what I charged them to get a little placement, and then they ended up buying a year. So that was a pretty big deal for us. It was $840, and we were high-fiving, and I don't even think I charged them GST. And I should have known that because I was an accountant before, but fuck, I didn't. So. But that was our first paid advertiser, and I don't know if they still exist. I should look it up, actually.
Something you mentioned earlier was, again, we were talking about customers or readers, and then obviously the more readers you have, the better advertisers you'll get. Recently, you guys have so you're in 7 cities? No, 6 cities, 5 cities?
7.
7 cities and international, Seattle and Portland. So
we just opened up Seattle and Portland in November.
Great, so international media, very exciting. And then you have, how many verticals? 8?
8 or 9.
Sports, food.
Yeah, we have sports, food, business and tech, news. There you go, 9. Thank you. Yeah, I should have known that. We have 9 verticals, soon to be 10. We have another one coming on, and then 7 cities. What's your question, though?
Oh, you're right. So I had to clarify that.
Okay.
Clarified it. 9.
And we got
so the question is, so why did you do that? Why did you need to?
So breaking it up into 9 verticals. Yeah. So we broke it up. Well, so we did so much content, and what we found was people didn't, even though they read us on the daily, they didn't identify us as a go-to source for sports or food. They knew that we covered all these things, but they didn't see it that way, and neither did our advertisers. So not only did the readers not acknowledge that this existed, but neither did the advertisers. And it's primarily because there's just so much information. You're consuming so much information. You're usually nowadays clicking from Facebook onto a website, and 9 times out of 10, they were saying, like, you click on a website, you don't even know what website you clicked on, you just read the news and then you're out. So for us, branding was something that had to become part of the equation for us as a media company, is that the brand needed to kind of start stepping out and getting a little bit more recognition as a brand. And although like logos is not the big thing, but like a name, the logo, the font, the type, the content that comes from that brand, we looked at that and we said, well, we do a lot of food content. Let's just test a food channel and see how that does and how it resonates with the audience. And I did that food channel without any buy-in from the rest of the company. Editorial kind of thought it was stupid to kind of like not, just call it food, And I was like, well, that's kind of boring. So we ended up calling it Dished. And I remember, everybody saying like, why did we waste all this time? Why are we changing all this? Because all the programmers, everybody had to do a lot of work to kind of get this live. But as soon as we did that, a month later, we had like, through an agency partner, Amex comes in and they're like, hey, we want to sponsor your dish section for 3 months. And I was like, see, that's why we did it. Now they know that we do this, and now they have this food program that they're working with, and it aligns perfectly with our dish vertical. Had we just had a category called food, they might have just had it's buried somewhere, and it's not in your face enough to grab the attention of both sides, the B2B and the B2C. So now, Dished is actually one of our more popular channels on social media. It does immensely in terms of engagement and followers and stuff. And then also, like from a sales perspective, it's opened up new revenue opportunities for us. And in media, anytime you can open up new revenue opportunities, that's a good thing, because it's really, really hard to get money in that media business.
Again, it's interesting what you've said. Like, I feel like a lot of organizations or small businesses, they struggle, right? Because they only have so many people, and there's only so many human resources to go around. So it's tough to think like we're gonna have social, we're gonna have Twitter, we're gonna have Facebook, we're gonna have Instagram, we're gonna have email marketing, we're gonna have all this stuff. Most organizations can't handle one Instagram, and you guys have like 5 Instagram channels, right? So it's
we got a lot.
Difficult for small businesses.
We got more than 5. Hey, Alex, how many Instagram channels we got? Like in total, how many Instagram accounts? 75 social media accounts is what we have that we manage, so that's quite a bit. And yeah, we have a team of 4 that manages it. So they do a hell of a job.
But it wasn't always that way, and obviously you...
Yeah, we had to expand it into it, yeah. But it's still quite a bit, And we do it with a very minimal budget. And speaking of budgets, now let me ask this guy some questions. It's a good segue. But I didn't do it that well. So you work at Innovate BC, which you guys also went through like a rebrand and everything and all that. But how many people think like, okay, this is a government-run organization, and when I first talked to Will, I was like, yo, this guy probably has hundreds of millions of dollars coming in from the government. Why aren't they marketing BC tech companies enough? Where you constantly hear about Ontario, and even Calgary tries to get their word out there, but they have a slight disadvantage of a location. But these guys have. When he told me his budget number, I was like, "That's your quarterly."
Budget.
Well, the organizations. Yeah, the organization's budget, which is how much?
$6 million a year.
$6 million a year to promote not Vancouver, all of BC, and to attract tech talent and find other and all that. Whereas Calgary, just the
city, has $100 million. Alberta, the province, has $600 million.
And
people are still not moving there.
Yeah, and they're still not moving there. They're gonna need a $6 billion. They're gonna need to hand people money, I think, to get them to get there. But Ontario has a shit ton of money. Quebec always gets money from the federal government, as we know. But $6 million. How do you make that work? And like BC tech's never been hotter in this province, and you guys do it with $6 million.
Yeah, really quickly, before I get into this, I should probably explain a little bit about what Innovate BC does. So Innovate BC is a Crown agency or Crown Corp. That means we're independent of the government slightly. We get fully funded by the government. And our role is really to connect innovators or companies to funding, resources, support, anything they need to develop innovative technology that meets the needs of the other industries in the province, right? And so yeah, Innovate BC's annual budget is $6 million. Like I said, other jurisdictions have significantly more funding, which is fine, but Innovate BC does a really good job of partnering with other organizations. So in Nanaimo, for example, there's an organization called Innovation Island that, actually, I think a lot of people here aren't from Nanaimo, but if you're from Nanaimo, you should look up Innovation Island. Fantastic organization. And we've found that the way that we make our money go further from a marketing or from a program standpoint is through partnerships. That's like the most important thing. And so I think if you're a small business and you're looking at like, oh, what does partnerships mean for me? I think a partnership for a small business is perhaps you're working with another business or another organization and you're tapping into their already established customer base, or you're tapping into their matured marketing channels already. And if you're partnering with another organization, you're perhaps leveraging the credibility that they've already built, right? Those are all really important things. I was meeting with some companies yesterday while I was here, and they were saying like, we would never host our own events. We would always just partner with other people on their events because that's the way that we can reach all of their audiences and their communities, and that's how we can expand sort of our circle of influence in the community. So partnerships have been pretty critical to us. And then the other big thing is we pretty much actually don't talk about ourselves. Like we could run ads about Innovate BC, but like no one really cares about Innovate BC. What people care about is like fantastic people in their community, right? So if you look at any of the content that we push out, it's always about spotlighting like an innovative company in Nanaimo, or an innovative company in Victoria, or an innovative company in Kelowna, right? And that's what really interests people. And then if we can say, oh, by the way, we have this funding that could help you and your company do what they've done, come talk to us. And so that's how we really position everything, really through partnerships with other organizations, and then also through making sure that any work that we do is actually about companies and the great work they're doing. Because obviously we'll share that on our social media channels, but the big thing is that they get a blog post written about them and they think it's like the greatest thing in the world, and then they're going to put that on all their social media channels, and then like their economic development agency will get wind of the fact that there's this cool company in their community, and then they're going to take that content and then they're going to distribute it, right? So again, partnerships and then really focusing on stories and providing value to companies in the different regions is really how we get what we do done through, again, limited resources.
I think the takeaway there is when you have a limited budget, you got to get creative.
Yep.
And you got to get resourceful, and you got to kind of get the most out of that dollar that you have. And you got to be very picky with where you put that money, right? To get that competitive edge. It's the same thing with us in like media. Like we don't have the big budgets as other media organizations do. So we have to be very picky on our Facebook campaigns, where we're spending our money, what sponsorships and stuff that we'll actually give cash to. It's that, like, you would wish that you just had a bunch of money, but sometimes like just because you have a bunch of money doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be successful either. Calgary is a perfect example of that. You know, from a tech perspective, and like it's a beautiful city, but like, you know, from like a tech perspective, it hasn't been able to get that attraction.
Yeah, and the other thing is, again, this is a digital marketing conference, but I think a lot of what we've talked about has been pretty low tech. Whenever we do support companies or we fund organizations, we make sure that like if you went to their office, they would have things related to Innovate BC everywhere in their office. So you go to one of the organizations or tech companies, they've got like a decal on the window that has our logo. Yeah. Go to their website, they've got our logo saying they got funding from us, right? And the analogy I use is like, you go shopping at like Gap or Nordstrom, and you leave and they give you this bag that like you could carry a human in, right? It's so big. And right then you're walking down the street and everyone like sees the bag. Sees that logo everywhere. So like whenever we are talking about our companies and our partners, we make sure they've got that Nordstrom bag, which is like the Innovate BC logo everywhere.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
That's smart. So working with government and the government officials and everything probably presents some challenges, I would say, especially in the tech, area, and them not being so technologically inclined. So maybe talk about that and how do you kind of overcome some of the challenges that you face dealing with government individuals and trying to explain to them what you do?
Yeah, so I mean, technically I'm a public servant, so
Yeah.
I can't like talk too much trash. But
Well, whatever you can say.
yeah, I don't know who's in the room here. Like, I might not have a job tomorrow. But you're right. In government and politics, like communications is a very big deal. But most people who have the power don't know a lot about communications.
And they gotta know a lot, a bunch of stuff. And then it's tech, you know, it's all very new and emerging. So I get it.
They know tech and innovation is like the hot thing, and so there's always emphasis on it, right? But again, I'll tell a really quick story about, again, a past leader in an organization related to mine where it was like clearly didn't kind of get like what marketing and branding was. Innovate BC used to be called BC Innovation Council. Before that, we were the Science Council of BC. And in 2018, through various legislation and for various reasons that aren't important, our name went from BC Innovation Council to Innovate BC. And at the time, I had a leader who, we had this event coming up in 2 months, and they were like, we need to have a logo to announce in front of everyone. And I was like, I don't think people really care about our logo. Like, you know what I mean? And this person, again, I won't say who it was like, no, we need to have a new logo. Someone's got to say it up on stage and show it on the screen. And like, maybe our co-op student, who was like a graphic designer, sort of, she was still a student, maybe she can design a new logo for us. And I was like, that's not a brand. You know, like if we're going through a rebrand, you know, like a lot is going to change. It's not the logo, right? Like, are we doing anything different? Are we a different organization? It takes years to build up what the brand has become. And it was like a 6-week battle to be like, can we just get over this logo? This logo doesn't matter. This is a 6 months to a year process to even flip the switch. And then we actually have to do something to sort of earn that brand reputation for a very long time. And I've had to tell this story a few times, and it always makes me think of, I forget, someone had Seth Godin on the screen. Oh, actually, I think we're going to talk about Sean this whole panel, by the way.
It's only because he's like right there,
He's right
keeps
there.
staring
I
at
can
us.
see Sean in my eyesight. He had Seth Godin up there, right? I forget what he said about it, but actually he had David Ogilvy, and David Ogilvy was talking about the intangibles of a brand, right? And but Seth Godin, if you go online, he's got these videos where he's talking about brands, and he's talking about Nike, like what is a brand versus the logo. And he says, like, if you thought about Nike and you thought about what Nike represents, right, like athleticism and risk and like just what an incredible company, and that swoosh, Seth Godin was saying, like, if Nike was to design a hotel, a lot of us, I think, in the room could actually imagine like what that might look like, right? You'd be like, oh yeah, Nike hotel, like that sounds cool. You know what I mean? Like maybe the walls have these like striking images of athleticism and like, you know, sports greatness, and like the rooms are all kitted out with various like fitness things. Like you could imagine what a Nike hotel would look like. However, if Hyatt was going to design a shoe, you'd be like, you'd have no idea what that would look like. That's because Nike has a brand and Hyatt is just a logo, right? That's one of the big differences, right? The brand is so much more than what the logo is. And this is what I had to get across to some bureaucrats, and there have been challenges, but I've been winning.
But that confusion between brand and logo, it prevails throughout. Like it's like even like you talk to people, that's the brand and the logo are not synonymous per se. It's just an element.
Yeah, part of it.
You know, and there's so much more that goes into it. And then eventually, through actions, through what you produce and your reputation, that logo becomes the beacon of the brand, like the signal, like the bat signal kind of the brand, right? But it embodies everything that is the brand, but it's not the brand.
Absolutely. And again, unfortunately, with government, and again, I'm a public servant, so I shouldn't say this, like, there's a lot of focus on, like, activity and not results. Whereas, obviously, if you're running a business, the most important investment you can make is in your product, right? If you don't have a good product, then don't get to marketing, forget marketing, right? If you have a good product, you don't need to market.
No amount of marketing will make a shitty product good, you know? You might be able to fool people for a while.
You'll trick people out the first time.
And then they'll find out about it, and then word of mouth and everything else takes over, and all that money you spent is gone because your product at the end of the day is not worth it. So yeah, money can't solve that problem. Agree. Moving forward a little bit, your biggest thing that you guys put on, the BC Tech Summit. You know, you guys put that on. I've yet to go. I've been invited many times, but I always forget to go. I'm never in town. That's the thing. You got to do it at a time when I'm there.
Well, I'll take that excuse for now.
That summit is one of the bigger events in the tech world in BC, if not the biggest. When you came on, you were able to increase the ticketing revenue by like, I think 32% or 33% or something like that. So what were some of the tactics that you used and brought to the table to kind of get that, revenue bump?
I mean, I relate it back to what you were talking about, your different verticals and your different customer segments. The BC Tech Summit, again, I should promote it slightly, is it's a large tech event. We call it Western Canada's largest annual innovation event. This year it's January 1st and 2nd. It's in Vancouver.
July 1st?
June 1 and 2.
June 1. You said January.
Oh.
Because that already happened then.
June 1, 2.
Yeah, okay.
Brings together everyone in the tech world together, startups, investors, academics, innovators, government. Really is meant to celebrate and connect and grow the tech sector as a whole. And yeah, over the past few years, it's grown in size and scope every single year. And again, where I'm held accountable is, did people pay money to come to this event? And there isn't all these fancy special like digital marketing tactics or anything like that. It's actually what we were able to do is to offer different price points for tickets and to introduce new products or different segments of the event that appeal to people. And not everyone's going to pay $500 for a ticket to a conference, and a way for us to really access different people in the community and make sure that it was accessible to a broader group of people was to create new products. In this case, the product is various elements of the event or components of the event that were like $50. So that's like not like some massive insight or anything like that, but we'd have a certain amount of people that will always pay $500 for these tickets because they're probably expensing them. But then we've got small business owners that are like, I'm never going to pay $500. So we introduced new products and segments that were like $50. And then that's another 300 people that say, oh, okay, now like this is more accessible to me. So over the years, we've like just done small steps and then made sure that we listened to the people that have come to the event. And again, like it's not super complex. Like we survey our attendees and people say like, you know what, I just want to network. I want to learn about like new tech and maybe get some deals done. And we know consistently that 80 to 90% of people say that they're getting that done. So that's a signal for us that we're delivering what people want.
That's interesting. So you took a high price, one catch-all price, and not just do like, the early bird special, and then that's cut whenever you kind of want to cut it, and then you actually broke it down further into segments of like micro customers almost, and from that's pretty cool. I never would have thought of that.
So I have a quick question. Again, we're talking a lot. Does anyone want to just yell out like what business they're in? I'm just super curious, like retail or e-commerce, real estate, photography.
You better be.
Nonprofit. Tourism. Oh, gin.
Wait, who said gin? Oh, I'm gonna talk to you after.
The new advertiser? Or?
Yeah, no, I just want some gin.
Oh, gin.
You said gin, right?
Alcohol.
Not Jim. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Sorry, I'll also be at the meeting.
Yeah, so I'll talk to you after. Not the gym, gin. Yeah.
I'll be joining that meeting too. What was that last one? Candy. Oh, yeah.
Oh, candy too. Candy and gin.
Yeah, okay, that's good. All right.
Clearly we don't go to the gym.
We'll keep that in mind. Yeah, Jim, yeah. What else you got?
Wait, where were you going with that? I thought you were going to go somewhere with that.
I just wanted to know for the rest of the talk.
I thought that's it? All right, well, I thought he had something there. Okay, well, I had one more question for you.
Okay.
You're also a writer yourself. You have your own tech journal that you started, Vancouver Tech Journal. How long has that been a thing, and then what made you kind of start that?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. So writer, been published in Daily Hive, been published in Beta Kid, Maclean's, University Affairs, Ottawa Magazine, various publications across Canada. For writing for me, so I have this thing called the Vancouver Tech Journal. It's just a weekly tech newsletter. About 1,000 people subscribe. They just get an email from me every Sunday. But the reason I do that is because in my role, in my day-to-day job, I need a lot of people to do favors for me to be effective. And I think, again, it goes back to providing value to sort of your audience, your stakeholders, right? And so, anyone know Gary Vaynerchuk? Oh, Sean also had Gary Vaynerchuk, I think, in his presentations. We're going to see how many times we can mention Sean Tyson. And he has a book called Jab, 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 Right Hook. I don't know if everyone's heard of that. If you want to write it down, Jab, 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 Right Hook, Gary Vaynerchuk. And like the jabs are like you providing value, you providing content, you building goodwill. And the right hook is now you're going to ask someone for something, whether to subscribe, to buy something, to donate to your cause. And so whatever I'm writing the Vancouver Tech Journal, all it is a summary of the most important news and technology in Vancouver. This is how I can sort of build goodwill with the community and sort of keep that in my back pocket for whenever I
when
need
you
to
need
get
something
something done. And I like tech, obviously. But
Yeah.
again, relating it to businesses, it's a really easy way to provide value to community. And the really cool thing, or the really important thing to remember about email, is that if you build an email list, like that is your email list, right? It's not like you have like followers on Twitter and you have likes on Facebook, and Facebook got everyone to invest in those channels, and then Facebook was like, actually, those aren't your followers. Those are still our followers, and you have to pay to access them, or you need to rent them from us and give us money to access them. And so, anyone know Scott Galloway? Great writer. He has a book called The Four. You should read it. And he's a line about this, like what happened? Facebook got everyone to invest in the platform, build their communities there, and then Facebook was like, now you need to pay us to access those people. And the way Galloway puts it is that, like a person who is dating someone who's much hotter than them, brands complained and then took the abuse. Because we're all still on Facebook. We're all still on Twitter, right? Like that's how he says it, right? And so, but with an email list, like all those 1,000 people, like those are mine.
Yeah.
There's no algorithm determining whether or not they're going to see what I send them, right? They're always going to get it. And like this is the open rate for like that list is over 50% always. So it's a really engaged email list. But again, it's a way to provide value and to hold that value before you need to ask for something in the future.
Yeah, it's kind of like drug dealers too, you know? It's kind of, when you think about it.
I don't know anything
you
about
know, not in Will's past life, he wasn't dealing or anything, but like it's the same model, you know? They give you a little bit of for free and then you get hooked to it and they're like, yo, I'm gonna make you pay for it.
Okay, yeah.
Right? That's all it was.
I get it. I guess
Now you got it, right? It's like the cigarettes and the crack.
Oh, I have no idea how much time we have left, but
We got like 15 minutes.
yeah, 15. How much time?
Yeah, I don't know if you want to keep it going.
No, man, we're talking about drug dealers
No,
now.
we should take it off the stage. No, I have a question for you though. So, Karm runs a media company, right? It's a digital newspaper. However, you guys also own an influencer agency as well as what is the other thing you guys bought?
It's like a media agency.
Like a media or digital marketing agency.
Digital marketing, yeah.
So obviously you had to invest in those things. And again, small businesses don't have lots of money. How do they know when to spend money on how do you know when they need to spend $1,000 on HubSpot? Like how did you know that this is a worthwhile investment to spend money on these other things that are going to contribute to your business, right?
Yeah, for us, I mean, the scale's a little bit different, obviously. I mean, if this opportunity was there when we were just starting out, I wouldn't start an influencer agency. I wouldn't invest and partner up and create a digital media agency, marketing agency as well, because we just wouldn't have the resources. We wouldn't be ready for it, but the timing was just right for us. We spent, no hard dollars up front. What we did was, we had extra space in the office. Like, well, if you don't want to pay rent, which is expensive in most cities, we can give you space. This is what the cost of it is for a year. What is your company worth? Okay, let's work out a valuation here, and then this percentage becomes ours based on what services we can provide. And that's the model we did with Colony, which is our digital marketing agency. And with the influencer agency, was kind of just, it came out of necessity. We were dealing with a bunch of people that kept wanting to work with influencers, and I was always passing them off to other people to go and find influencers on our behalf for the agencies for the client. So it was just like a long-winded road that finally, they would never get what they wanted because there's just way too many people and they would just give generic influencers that they had. So we were like, let's just cut out some of the middle people and let's just go direct and be the agency ourselves. We know so many people in all the markets. We can start with a small roster and then build it from there. And then, our clients have been just coming to us for micro-influencers, large-scale influencers, and very, very niche influencers. But we can find almost any kind of influencer you're kind of looking for. And it was all just born out of a constant clients wanting it. We're like, well, let's just give them one. But we didn't want to be, being in media, you can't, I don't know, we didn't want to muddy the line, so we kind of had to keep a separate entity and all that just for, keep it all separate. Ethics and, ethics. That's it. But the line between media and what's media and marketing is so blurred nowadays that line is so gray. And then what is considered good and bad, and people don't know anymore. Obviously there's some hard lines, but in terms of what's promotional, what's not, and especially with what we do, we write all of our articles. A lot of our branded articles are very similar to the kinds of articles we write for free. If a new restaurant opens up, they don't have to pay us. We just find out about it, and it's that's a cool restaurant, we're gonna write about it. But if another restaurant we haven't heard about comes to us and it's hey, I want the same kind of article, we're okay, this is the fee. And then we slap a little branded logo.
It's tagged.
It's tagged, everybody knows that it's paid for, but it's, as a reader, you'll be oh, I'm reading this. It's hard to kind of decipher if it's paid, if you don't read that part, so sometimes it confuses people.
I'm curious if Sean approves of that type of article. Yeah.
Sean wrote it.
Sean's agency
I go to
wrote it,
Quietly.
probably. You're right, yeah. It's probably his agency. He wrote one of those articles.
I think we use you guys. Yeah, we do. When we have our team's too busy, we go to.
I think I've got
Q&A.
Yeah, Q&A. Again, business owner, owns a media company, owns a marketing agency, owns an influencer agency. Lots of things. Does anyone have any questions? Oh, there's right there.
And for Will. Will's cool, man. He does a lot of stuff too.
No. I'm the journalist, so I ask the questions.
Yeah, my question is for you, Karm. Actually, you segued into it really well. With that branded content and sponsored content, how do you balance, like you said, your articles are really similar, but how do you balance the amount that you're pushing out on your socials, on your website, to still keep that integrity of your company without just being here, look at all this stuff that I'm getting paid to show you?
Right. We have a rule. It's an 80-20 rule. So 80% has to be organic content that we create, and 20% is branded. It allows us to also scale as well. So if we pump out more content, we can have more branded. So that's 80-20 is what we kind of go for. There are times where a client will be hey, I really need this article to go out at this time. Sorry I came to you late, but I need it done. And you're you got to weigh that and be okay, this is a long-term client. You know what? Sure, but I'm doing you a favor, right? But we stand pretty strict on the 80-20 rule.
Very cool. Is there anyone else in Nanaimo or visiting Nanaimo? Oh, a very special guest.
Cool. Thanks for the chat, guys. Love the insights about drugs and stuff. So I have a question, but before I get to my question, Karm, I'm going to update you that the Bachelor Plan is still around and kicking.
Oh, nice.
On their website.
It had a lot to do with the early advertising.
I kid you not. There's a section, it's called We Are Here to Stay. Don't take a chance with your party and your money. Come to the company that's been in business for more than a decade.
So you were a part of that.
Building dreams.
Yeah, helping out.
But in all seriousness, you're seeing a lot of publishers like yourself start to consider paywalls and subscriptions. Is that something you're considering, or you just monetizing traffic as you described earlier?
Yeah, that actually kind of, our team, every once in a while someone will hey, we should maybe charge something for the readers. And I'm always kind of torn by that idea of charging for news, because it should be, news should be, for at least the audience, free to consume, I feel. The moment you kind of put a barrier in between that, now you're taking away information that might be useful to someone that should know it. And that's always kind of been my rule, is I don't want to really do that. I mean, who knows how media will evolve and what the economics of publishing become, that it might force your hand, that you have no choice to do that. But we want to build and we want to build a sustainable business that can run without that as an option. That's at least the short term, and I mean, that'd be the forever goal. And I think there's, not to say that it's wrong, I think like someone like the New York Times or, there's certain institutions where, it's on another level that you can demand that premium price point. But with that comes a lot of expectations, and you'd have to balance it all out. Now, if we were to charge someone, let's say $9.99 a month or whatever it is, they wouldn't want any advertising on it. But then how do you get rid of the branded how do you work around all the branded content pieces that are out there? Even though, yeah, maybe we don't show it to the subscribers on the site, but they'll still possibly see it on their Facebook feed, and then they might feel duped a little bit, like, hey, I'm still getting branded content served to me on my feed, but I'm paying for it, what the hell's going on? So that's a tricky one, but I don't think we would charge.
I'm going to try and steal the last question, if there aren't any others. And you're around for a bit, right, or no? After this?
Yeah, I'm around.
People can come chat with you. How do you deal with detractors? And maybe you have an anecdote about a concert that was
Concert?
canceled,
Oh, the Kanye?
and maybe you had to deal with other journalists saying stuff. Maybe there's a story around this. I don't know.
Yeah. We get, people call us disruptors. So when you're a disruptor of a traditional industry, the traditional industry will not, take you seriously in the beginning. And then when you become a legitimate threat, you become an enemy of theirs. Instead of what I think should happen is you should all just become friends and work together for a common good. But especially in journalism, it's very territorial. Everybody's very territorial and very particular, and I think that's what is needed. But from a level of like writing, and obviously you need to like really be into what you do and own what you do. But we get detractors all the time. And then the one particular story that you're referring to it's a few years old now. I think this is when Kanye. This is the old Kanye, not the new Kanye. So Kanye West, as many of you probably know who Kanye West is. Everybody knows Kanye, mostly. Yeah, shaking heads. Yeah. So he was going to come to Vancouver to do a tour, his tour stop, but he had canceled some shows before, but he said that the Vancouver show was going to go on, so everybody assumed it was going to go on. But I had a friend who had a friend that was a security guard for the show, so he was hired to play the show, and they had a staff meeting, and they told everybody, go home, there's no show. You don't need to come. And I double, triple checked to make sure this was correct. And I was like, you're not just fucking joking? Like, I'm gonna write the story that it's canceled, so it better be true. He's like, yeah, man, the guy's heading home. They would not do that if he's not coming. And he's like, look, and then I think he was showing me that video of, like a grainy video of him taking the trucks, like his tour trucks away and everything. So we wrote the article. We were the only ones that wrote the article. And at the time, I did the Twitter I'm pretty sure I did the Twitter. Alex, were you around for that? No, so I did I was a guy that I think wrote the article and did the Twitter interactions and posted and everything. And I remember tweeting it, and then Francois Marchand, I think his name is. I don't know if he works at the Vancouver Sun anymore. He was really nice to me before. We would talk on Twitter and banter and stuff. But this particular incident kind of rubbed him the wrong way because I guess he didn't break this story. So then he kind of came at me and was like, "How do you know? How do you know that he's not coming?" I was like, well, and I was being kind of a jerk, I guess, or a jackass. I was like, well, journalists, we don't reveal our sources, right? And I wasn't gonna say I didn't want him to get the story, so fuck it. Why? Do your own digging, call him up, right? So I said that, and he's like, well, he goes, I don't believe you. He goes, I think that show's gonna go on. I goes, well, that's up to you, man. I go, you run with your story, I'll run with mine. So we went back on a little bit of a Twitter war, which I love engaging in, but I'm told not to a lot, but I love engaging in those a little bit. He got so upset that then others started piling on. The Georgia Strait guys came on, and everybody started piling on, and I was just like, oh my God, now, guys, this is not happening, and I'll be vindicated in 2 hours. And then at the time, there was a radio host, Kid Carson. He tweeted that the show was still on. And because, he's Kid Carson, he's built up a reputation, and he's been widely known, and nobody really knows who we were, they believed him. And then I messaged Kid, because we used to talk in our DM, and I was like, dude, it's not happening. And he's like, well, I don't know for sure, so my team told me to tell you that it's still on. I was like, okay. And then about an hour later, it came out that it was canceled, and then I went off on everybody. I was like, I told you. And then Francois blocked me and never talked to me again. Which is fine. I don't give a fuck. Why you blocked me on Twitter? Oh, who cares? But it was just hilarious that something like that would ruffle so many feathers in an industry. It's like there's something just. It's like, dude, just go write about something else. You guys are killing us right now, anyways. It doesn't matter. But it was just interesting the dynamics of that, and then the little tidbits of. There's that little bit of hate that's always in the back of their mind. They like us, but they like us as long as we're not winning. But as soon as you start winning, then they don't like you no more. And I was like, all right, well, I don't need you in my life anyways, though, so we're good.
Oh, yeah, I have one last question before we get Sarah up here.
We got time.
We got one last question, just based on how, you're kind of meek and quiet and you never share your opinion with anyone. And so what are your thoughts on business owners taking a stance on social issues? If anyone follows Karm on Twitter, you should follow him, by the way. You learn that he's very passionate about Vancouver as a city and the quality of life for people and social issues and policy. And some people would say oh no, your CEO shouldn't weigh into that type of stuff. Why do you do that? Why is that important?
Some of those people are in my organization. I get that. I think as long as you're being authentic and true to who you are, you can't hide that. Eventually it comes out, whether it's not online, but people around you will know. And so for me, I just go out, and if I don't agree with what the mayor is doing, I'm gonna let him know, instead of skirting around the issue.
Karm tweets at the mayor, right?
I tweet at him all the time. He also unfollowed and blocked me. But whatever. I want the city to be better, and I feel I keep telling him that you don't do anything. You're invisible. I call him the invisible mayor now, and I feel you should be able to speak your mind. And obviously there could be some consequences to that. Mainly if there's an election coming, they may not want to spend some money with us. That's fine. That's a consequence I'm willing to live with. They don't spend much money with us anyways right now. They should, but they don't. But I think you should be authentic to yourself, whether it's on Twitter. Just if you're passionate about something, you should kind of just let that kind of come out. Obviously, I think I could be a little bit more eloquent, and I think over the years, as I've gotten older, I am a little bit more eloquent on Twitter, and I do not just like that. I would have handled that Kanye thing way differently. I would have just let it slide and you know what, say what you want, I'm good. Yeah. I wasted too much time and energy on that. But you still need to say it. I care about the city, but I also care about my employees. I care about the business community, and I want it to grow. And you pick your channels on where you kind of can say those things. LinkedIn is where I talk about Vancouver's tech scene and how I want to grow, or how as a boss you have this as a leader you there's a lot of pressure, and it comes with that territory of how do you coach and grow people and still learn to grow yourself. That all comes with looking within and stuff. So there's different platforms for Twitter's where I get to just kind of shoot it off the hip, and then LinkedIn is more teaching and learning and growing myself.
Great. Well, I think we probably are out of time. I'm looking forward to seeing Sarah. But thank you, Karm. It's been fun. And
thank you, Will.
You'll be around later if everyone wants to chat.
I'll be next to the gin guy.
Yes.
Yes.
Cool. Thanks a lot.
All right, thank you.